I'm going to be ranking the Premier League managers based on their transfer business this summer, the style of play we've seen on the pitch so far, and the start they've made to the season. At the foot of the table in 20th position, it's still going to be Luton for me. The transfer business of Rob Edwards is done. I don't think there's enough there for Luton to think about staying in the Premier League this season. We've not really been able to see much of a style of football from them because they've been fighting for their lives, and the start they've made to the season, of course, is terrible. They're bottom. In 19th position, second bottom for me, is Mauricio Pochettino. The Chelsea manager has got it all wrong for me in the transfer window. They've had a lot to do, but bringing in guys like Robert Sanchez and really failing to build out a team with the amount of money they had to spend this summer, for me, it just feels like they've got it all wrong. The start to the season they've had, of course, has been terrible, and there is like no style of play really coming from Chelsea, but I think they've got any hope of having anything good happen this season. Completing the managerial relegation zone for me is Marco Silva in 18th at Fulham. Losing Mitrovic to Saudi Arabia for a big money transfer. They seem to get their ducks in a row, signing guys like Raul Jimenez, bring in Adama Traore. But overall, I don't think the transfer business they've done this summer is going to be good enough for them. And I think they've lost a lot of quality this summer. The start they've had to the season as well is neither here nor there with where they've actually been getting their points from. And the style of play, I don't really think it's moved on from last season. In 17th position, I've got Burnley's Vincent Kompany. I think they've been quite ambitious in the transfer market with the age and the player profile that they go for. It's very clear that Kompany has them playing his style of football at the Premier League level, but unfortunately their start to the season has been pretty poor and they're in a pretty desperate situation, needing points fast. In 16th position, I put Andoni Iraola, who is also a new face to the Premier League, and I think coming into this Bournemouth team, he's done some pretty smart business in this summer with some key players that have came in. Their start to the season hasn't been that terrible, but there's been a clear style of play come from Andoni Iraola very early in the Bournemouth career. And when you appoint a manager like that in the Premier League, you want to see the style of football happen. In 15th position for me is Man United's Erik Ten Hag. Now, the summer transfers, I think, of Onana and Højlund will be very good business as time goes on, but overall, it's clear to see the transfer business has been an absolute riot and they've got nothing really right. They've not fixed enough of their problems, been able to fight in the Champions League as well as the Premier League. It's not going to cut it. It's not going to be good enough. The start to the season they've had has been pretty terrible as well. They do have points on the board, but again, when we look at where they got their points from, it's just not good enough. And the style of play is absent. I don't think you can tell me a Man United fan out there that is happy or is confident that we're seeing a real style of play develop at the team at the moment. Sean Dyche might surprise you in at number 14 here, but when you look at the transfer business that Everton has done, Sean Dyche has been a real janitor, cleaning out a lot of big guys on big wages to try and give Everton a clean canvas to restart, refresh and rebuild their squad. Of course, the club has just changed hands, so that's going to be pretty exciting for the Toffees, for Everton fans over the next couple of windows, maybe similar to what we've seen for Newcastle. But they've not had a good start to the season and they've not had a real style of play materialise. But I do think the transfer business that they've shipped out in the summer is very underrated for what Everton might have the chance to go and create now. Now, after Paul Heckingbottom's rant about referees controlling the game and added time and all that kind of stuff, and seeing Wes Fotheringham play Premier League football as a goalkeeper, I did not expect to find him as high up my list. But if you do look at the transfer business for Sheffield United, the players, the profiles, the types of guys they're trying to bring in is very impressive and very ambitious. They've had actually a pretty decent start to the season in terms of points on the board, and they do have a pretty clear style of football when you watch them. And I do think Paul Heckingbottom, if he can, just stop with the crappy excuses and get a real goalkeeper in, I think he's worthy of being 13th in this table. Another shot candidate for you might be Gary O'Neill in at 12th. Now, Wolves have been Wolves in the sense that they do good against the bigger teams without maybe quite getting the result, and then against lesser teams, they just don't really show up at all. And Gary O'Neill hasn't really arrested that problem, but when you do watch Wolves, I'm really excited about what he's trying to do with their forward players and with their midfielders, and with the transfer business they've had against similar to some other clubs, a lot of high-profile players on big money leaving out. It's been a real transitional season, and I actually think Wolves have been very clever with some of the acquisitions, some of the players have still managed to bring in, that I think with the style of football we see from Gary O'Neill, with the transfer business he's done, I think he warrants his position on the table, although their start to the season has been pretty poor. One thing you're going to get from Thmoas Frank and Brentford is style of football, and every time you watch Brentford, you know exactly what they're going to be doing, in the sense of, like, they're a Premier League opposition, they're a really good outfit that can take anyone on any given day, and we've not really seen any negative change changes against that, which has been great for them. The transfer business, but again, quite similar to a lot of people in this range in the table. It's been more getting guys out, spent a lot of money on a goalkeeper, and it's clear to see that that money has been very well spent. And I think 11 for Thmoas Frank is a really safe ranking for him at this point in the season. Eddie Howe comes in for me at number 10. Now, I don't think Newcastle have made the best start to the season they possibly could have. I think all the games I've watched them in, I'm sitting there shouting at the telly that they could have got a point. They could have got 3 points. They could have done a little bit more. I do think the transfer business overall has been good. You know, bringing in guys of the calibre of Tonali, getting young emerging talents that are actual Newcastle fans like Holland, signing guys like Livramento who are high prospects. I think they've done pretty well. And the style of football, as much as I don't think it's top 4 material, they're doing very well at game management, and I think they're very firmly Eddie Howe, Newcastle, as the season has started so far, transfer business, style of play, mid-table. Steve Cooper in Nottingham Forest for me comes in at 9th. I've been very impressed with their transfer business. Again, it's been very ambitious. We're seeing that from a lot of Premier League teams. But what Nottingham Forest is also doing is coupling those big name players in with the style of play that Cooper has been really firmly instilling in them in last year's campaign, and we're still seeing this year. Losing Brennan Johnson on deadline day was a huge blow, but they've not really missed much of a beat here. And I think they've had a great start to the season. They're still getting a really good style of play. And for how we're ranking the managers, Steve Cooper is firmly top half. Now, Crystal Palace had one of those summers that it was finally the chickens were coming to roost. Wilf Zaha has left the building, and without him now, they need to move into a new era. But they've got an old head back, and of course, it's still Roy Hodgson. Looking at their transfer business, they've got a lot to do to replace Wilf Zaha. For me, more importantly, they retained Eberechi Eze, they retained Olise, and they've tried to get some nice acquisitions in to try and replace Zaha and try and move the team on now that they're not going to be as reliant on one guy, one talisman to maybe lift them up the table, be the match winner for them. We're seeing more of the squad now, more of the style of the team actually impact Crystal Palace's style of play and their results. And I think they are, again, very good value for money at number 8 in the ranking for how they've done their transfer business, how they've started the season, and the style of play that's starting to emerge. David Moyes comes in at 7 for me, losing Declan Rice, winning the Conference League. It is a great time to be a West Ham fan with all that money in the bank, not losing Declan Rice. But for Moyes, I think he's done a good job of, not just rushing in and getting anyone for the sake of getting someone in. Mohamed Kudus is a great acquisition, and they've retained some other really core parts of the team. Overall, I just think West Ham's business has been really slick, really professional. They've had a good start to the season as well. And once we see some of these new pieces start to come into the team, like I said, it's going to be a really exciting time to be a West Ham fan. And David Moyes is going from strength to strength there, and I'm really excited to see how they can kick on this season. Just a little bit ahead, I think I would have Unai Emery in number 6. Aston Villa have signed a lot of players that are levels above the squad pool that they had already, and I think they've hit the ground running. They've got more often good results. The style of football isn't being compromised, it's being enhanced with the new players that are coming in. They're really hitting the ground running, and I think they've had a really good start to the season that you have to really balance in the amount of new faces that have came in that have made an impact. They have had some injuries, and now they're having to juggle midweek football. I think Unai Emery and Aston Villa have had a great window and a great start to the season. In number 5 is Mikel Arteta. Now, I think getting Declan Rice was probably one of the biggest coups of the window, but I just don't quite feel that Arsenal otherwise have really tried to move the team on to really compete with City, make a real go at being Premier League champions this year. I do feel that they are still relying on a few, like if Odegaard wasn't available, goalkeeper situation is still a bit flaky, and in the defence, man, how many guys need to get injured? I feel really bad for the amount of injuries that Arsenal are picking up, but I don't think the business has been, other than Declan Rice, that good this window. I don't think their start to the season has really blown anyone away. And yeah, the style of football is still pretty good. I find Arteta and Arsenal in 5th. Number 4 for me is Jurgen Klopp. Now, I think Liverpool have had a really important transfer window. A lot of players leaving, a lot of new faces coming in. And again, I think he's done a really great job at getting key targets in, guys like Szoboszlai, McAllister. But Liverpool have been doing a lot of preemptive transfer window work. And I think the overall style of the team, you can see with Liverpool, it's now melding through different generations where Mane and Firmino, Henderson, a lot of guys are now gone, and they've not really missed much of a beat, and this next generation of Liverpool is starting to emerge. They've had a pretty good start to the season as well, and it just feels like really everything's going pretty well for Liverpool, and they're maybe just missing one or two more transfers, and we can see them really become a top 2 team again in the league very clearly. In number 3, I have Pep Guardiola. Now, the reason I have Pep in number 3 is, of course, City have got the style of football, they've got the start to the season. The summer transfer window, I do think they did very good business, huge transition losing Mahrez and Gundogan, but I do think that the reason he's in number 3, not maybe number 1, is there could have been maybe another transfer come in that creative attacking position, because now that we've seen Bernardo Silva get injured, Kovacic has been injured already, we've seen guys like Palmer, McAtee, a lot of youth prospects go, along with a few other clubs that we've seen in the Premier League. It just feels that City have had a really concentrated position of the pitch that seems to get lots of injuries, and maybe in hindsight, in the transfer market, they could have maybe kept some of their youth prospects, is what I would hold against Pep. In number 2, I have Zerbi. Now, I think Zerbi, of course, is doing a fantastic job with Brighton. The transfer business they've done in the summer was masterful. Selling the guys they sold for the amount of money they sold them for, and still have such a high quality squad where they can make like multiple changes, still go and beat Man United, still go and play midweeks and weekends and not really miss a beat. I don't think they've done very much wrong at all. For me, they are very firmly top 2, top 3 outfit, top to bottom in the Premier League at the moment. The start to the season, the style of play and the transfer business they've done has been almost second to none. But for me, the number 1 ranked manager on the transfer business done in the summer, losing Harry Kane, bringing in guys on a budget like Manor Solomon and Vicario, getting the best out of guys that were dead, like Pedro Porro and Christian Romero. Yves Bissouma couldn't get in the team last season as well. It's been fantastic. James Maddison, probably one of the transfers of the summer. The style of play, you know who I'm talking about already. Ange Ball has been a revelation across the league, and I think every game you watch, there's a very clear style of football that he's been able to implement. He's only been in there for 5 minutes, and I can't say it enough. They've lost Harry Kane. They've lost the main part of their team. Tottenham finished absolutely terribly last year, and for them to have started the league as well as they have with very similar squad to last season without their best player, the transfer business, the start to the season and the style of play, Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham Hotspur are very firmly top of the league for me. Let me know what you think down in the comment section down below of this video. I'll be really interested to hear what your thoughts are. What have I got wrong? What have I missed? What do you think you'd have done differently? On screen now, some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.